Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. My name is Natalia Moczulska and this is the news. It is the third day of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Yesterday's night was not safe again. The Russians shelled Kiev. According to the authorities of the Ukrainian capital, the missile hit one of the apartment buildings. The world also learned about the heroism of Ukrainians fighting for the Snake Island. Their attitude has already become a symbol of this war. With this cry, the Ukrainians responded to the call of the Russian ship to surrender. 13 Ukrainian border guards defended Snake Island. They could have surrendered, but chose a heroic fight and death. Yesterday night, Kiev was shelled. The attacks have been repulsed, although according to the Minister of Health of Ukraine, 198 people, including 3 children, died as a result of the attack by Russia, and 1,100 are injured, including 33 children. In turn, the Ukrainian side reports that 3,500 Russian soldiers were killed and 200 were captured. Russia, in addition to military activities, is waging a war of disinformation.
Всім доброго ранку.
Good morning to all Ukrainians. Recently, a lot of false information has appeared on the internet, according to which I am calling our army to lay down their arms and evacuate. Listen, I'm in Kiev. We will not lay down our arms. We will defend our state because our weapon is the truth, and the truth is our land, our country, our children, and we will defend all of this. That's all I wanted to tell you. Glory to Ukraine.
Наша країна, наші діти.
The president of Ukraine said during a press conference that enemy attacks are being effectively fought off. I can start this appeal with good news. We withstand and successfully repel enemy attacks. Fights take place in many cities and regions of our country, but we know that we are defending the country, the land, the future of our children. The Russian side continues to claim that their actions are dictated by the concern to save the inhabitants of Ukraine. During all these years, Kiev disregarded the Minsk agreement and pursued a policy of genocide against the people of Donbass because they wanted to speak their mother tongue and demanded that their rights and freedoms be respected. There is information in the media about serious losses in Russian equipment. Vitaly Klitschko, the mayor of Kiev, warns against Russian saboteurs. How do they look? They are in civilian clothes and speak Russian. If you see suspicious people, report to law enforcement officers. Be vigilant, destroy the signs left by the enemy. Meanwhile, the mayor of Chernihiv, a city located 80 kilometers from the border with Belarus, appealed to residents to prepare to defend the city. Dear residents of Chernihiv, we all have to prepare for street fights. Who knows what I am talking about? Let them prepare incendiary cocktails. I am asking the inhabitants of Chernihiv who are not indifferent to come to the place where the territorial defense is stationed and ask the commanders to issue weapons and to fight for our city. Ukrainian authorities report that Russian soldiers are being disarmed by territorial troops. MPs from the Russian Communist Party protested against the war in Ukraine. I think the war should be stopped immediately. By voting for the recognition of the DNR-LNR, I voted for peace, not war, for Russia to become a shield, to not bomb Donbass, and to not bomb Kiev. The director of the Polish Institute in Kiev, Robert Czyżewski, notes that the Russians have not conquered any great city so far. He argues that this is an effect of, among other things, yesterday there was information about attempts to establish peace negotiations. Russia wants them to take place in Minsk, while Ukraine proposes Warsaw. Anti-war protests took place in Warsaw, Madrid, Paris, London, Rome, Athens, and Istanbul, among others. Ukrainians and representatives of other nationalities gather on the streets of European cities to jointly express their opposition to the war and persuade their governments to impose sanctions on Russia.
Ukraine will come out stronger out of it and more united, and the only thing Putin will reach is showing the world what he is, and he will ruin himself, he will ruin his this country, and he will just go back to his hole to rot.
It's a war not just for Ukraine, but also for the West and for the democracy and for the ability of a country to choose its own future. And that affects the Baltic states, Poland, and really all of Europe and all of the world.
The inhabitants of the Far East and the Antipodes also demonstrate. In Sydney, hundreds of people flocked to the streets despite the pouring rain.
I want more economic sanctions on Russia. I want military help for Ukraine. I want more action, more concrete action, and less words. It's too late for diplomacy right now.
Tokyo residents also protested today. Among them, as all over the world, there are Russians who are against the war. I completely condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine. All Russians I know do not support it. We hate what is happening in our country right now. For the people of Taiwan, supporting Ukraine is of exceptional importance as they have faced the specter of an invasion by China over the past 2 years. I believe that these developments will have a huge impact on Taiwan's place in the world. China will monitor the reactions of Europe and the United States towards Ukraine and will take them into account in its considerations on a possible invasion of Taiwan. The inhabitants of both Americas also took to the streets. Many of them are Ukrainians who fear for their relatives living in the country. My mother is in Odessa now, and yesterday she was woken up by the bombs. Like many of my friends, she tries to take cover, but many buildings have collapsed. You cannot leave the cities because the roads are damaged, because there is no gas. We don't know how to help them apart from coming to the protests. Demonstrators in Los Angeles pressure the U.S. government to impose tougher sanctions against Russia.
Because we should switch off Russia from SWIFT, but if we can see Germany and Italy don't want to support us.
To continue my normal life, even though I'm here, my heart is with Ukraine.
Protests against the war with Ukraine were also held in Russia itself. Yesterday, about 200 people demonstrated in St. Petersburg. Police detained over 60 of them. On Thursday, on the day of the announcement of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, anti-war protests were held in 58 Russian cities. Over 1,800 people were detained. Yesterday, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that the Russians did not have the right to organize protests against the invasion of Ukraine. From today on, Visa and MasterCard cards of Russian banks, which are under sanctions, will no longer work abroad. Additionally, Polish diplomacy works towards banning Russia from Western banking system. Last Thursday, Italy, Cyprus, Hungary, and Germany blocked a move to cut Russian access to the SWIFT system. Now, after brutal attacks on civilians in Ukraine, the first 3 countries are in favor. Prime Minister Morawiecki went to Berlin to convince Germany to follow the suit.
We stand in front of the tribunal of history because an independent state, sovereign state, democratic state of Ukraine has been invaded by Russia. And nothing is going to stop Putin if we are not decisive enough. Germany cannot immerse in concreted selfishness, egoism. You have to stop this. We have to stop this. We have to stop Putin. Because the next genocide is looming on the horizon. Innocent people are being killed. Children, women, soldiers, men. You see those pictures every day. What about your conscience? Let's help them together. The package of sanctions has to be crushing, has to be massive, really massive. It has to relate to the SWIFT system, to cut off Russia from all the businesses with the West. We cannot buy Russian oil, Russian gas, ultimately, Russian coal. We have to get independent of them. But also we have to cut off all the oligarchs, Russian oligarchs, who support Putin, who are with him on the same boat, from financing, any kind of financing. This is why we have to address also the MSCI index, not only SWIFT. And our sanctions have to relate not only to the Russian oligarchs, but also more broadly to the Russian business. And, dear German partners, we have to be aware that Putin is behind all this, so Putin also has to be on the sanctions list, because we stand in front of the tribunal of history, and this is a very historic moment, a very, very decisive moment. We have no time to lose. What kind of offer, what kind of help you will deliver to Ukraine? 5,000 helmets? This must be a joke. Das ist ein Witz. Das muss ein Witz sein. We have to deliver real support for the Ukrainian population, for Ukrainian people. And please bear in mind also, in Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, not only does gas flow through those pipeline systems, but also children's, mothers and soldiers' blood. This is now very obvious. Think about this, because this is a historic moment. We have to be sure that whatever we do today will contribute to maintaining the sovereign and independent Ukraine. That's also in our interest, in the interest of Poland, in the interest of Germany, in the interest of Lithuania, in the interest of the whole of the European Union.
And finally, on Saturday, within 4 hours, the Polish border was crossed by another 15,000 refugees. Since the beginning of the war, it has been exceeded by a total of 115,000 people. Increased traffic continues at all Polish-Ukrainian border crossings. Crowds of Ukrainians, refugees who are fleeing the turmoil of war. Women and children, the elderly are the most common faces who receive great help from Polish hands. Stands were spontaneously created here at the border crossing in Korczowa, where Poles distribute food, hygiene products, and offer all kinds of transport assistance. There are also people from abroad, Ukrainian families. There are tears of joy when a father reunites with his wife and his children, who after a several-hour journey can finally embrace their loved ones. But there are also tears resulting from sadness and despair about the news and what is happening at this time in Ukraine. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Please stay tuned for some of our other programs, including Poland Daily Business and Poland Daily Weather. But from me, it's have a great Saturday night.